So we were commissioned to create a custom island top for a new home in St. Petersburg, Florida. And we decided to make this island top out of spalted hickory. Spalting is a process where a log would be left sit for a little while and a fungus basically goes through the log. You can't leave it for too long because then the wood will rot. So on the first step here, after we milled our hickory slabs, we glued these up with some festool dominoes, and we just took basically these boards off the CNC machine. And it was a little bit tricky on this particular project because the boards were quite uneven in length and we had to create a particular size, and we really had to lay it out first how we're going to glue up the slabs together. And once we had it laid out, we domino joined these with a festool domino and used Tide Bond 2 to glue them up. And here I'm setting up a festool track saw where we basically cut the edges straight, and this is a rough cut, so it's a little bit oversized, so we have a little room to work with as we going through the process of making this top. I have to cut both sides of the island, and in this case typically the live edge would be on the long side of the island. Here they're requested to have the live edge on the short side, which is not where people are sitting normally. They're normally sitting on the longer side that I'm cutting right now. After I cut the edges, we had to also cut out undermount sink hole, and here I'm putting down some 3M double-sided tape, and we usually use these for making jigs for ourselves, and we just basically glue some plywood on after we laid out exactly the size. It's very important to go by the guidelines of the undermount sink. Every one of them comes with a particular template, and it's very good to use that. So after I glued up the plywood, I'm using a Porter cable router with a flush trim bit. Here we had to use various sizes of lengths of router bits because you can only adjust the machine so much in depth. So we started with a 1-inch length with a ball bearing on the top, and then we kept going as deep as we can. And then we removed the jig because now we have a nice clear path where we could actually fit the 1/2-inch bit in there, and then we can just continue to cut. The remaining we decided to cut with a jigsaw, and this allowed us to remove the cutout. We're actually using the cutout to create some floating shelves for the kitchen as well. No wood is wasted. Once we removed the cutout, then we're going to flush trim out the remaining with our router here. And once we're done, we cut everything, we cleaned it up, and moving to the next phase where we basically getting the repairs and the cracks fixed in the wood. In this case, depends on the size of the crack. You'll see me using 2 types of products. One of them is we use a Star Bond glue. It's an instant glue, works with an activator for smaller cracks. Also, we use epoxy for bigger cracks. You could see me pouring the epoxy over here. These are necessary because these little cracks over time could grow bigger or something can get in them, and it creates like a situation that's not really desirable. It also helps to make the surface look much smoother. We use an epoxy called the C28, which is local to Florida. We found that this epoxy is really good. It's not only, this is not a casting epoxy, this is a glue epoxy, but we use it for all purposes, and it's been working out great for us for the last 9 years. We don't really use deep pour epoxies because we haven't had much luck with getting a real clear product with them without any trouble. And this process is very tedious. It takes a couple of days to fill everything in because you can only pour so much epoxy at the same time. And but we have a couple of days here, and Adam is very meticulous about it. Here we're just grinding the edges a little bit because it was a little rough, just to take all the excessive bark remains. And we're using a Festool Rotax sander grinder, which is a really good tool on basically prepping the wood. We had to fill some voids because the unevennesses of the slabs. There's only a couple of smaller spots where we glued a precisely cut out piece into the slab. We tried to grain match it as much as possible. It came out really good. You can't really tell where it was inserted. So these are the tricks that you have to play with and find the right piece with the right tone and the right spalting. After that, we used a fast tool, Rotax, to basically grind the entire surface with 40, 60, and 80. And then we move on to the final prepping, where we use a fast tool sander. This is a number 3, and number 3 means how many millimeter of oscillation does the machine has. And we basically sand this top up to about 180 grit. And once it's all done, we break all the edges and move it to the spray booth. Here I'm putting a seal coat on the top. First, I always spray the edges so there's no overspray once I sprayed the top, so it's better to start with the edge. Also, the edge sucks up a lot more finish because the 2 ends are end grain. And then I'll spray an ML Campbell vinyl sealer, which is basically a sealer for our crystal dull post-catalyzed top coat. We do 2 coats of sealer. Here we had to do 2 coats of sealer. Our second sealer coat was heavier because the wood was very porous and it sucked up a lot of finish. Here I'm spraying the fill coat. The seal coat really just seals the wood, and then the fill coat is the heavier coat where the finish would seep into a little bit more deeper in the wood, but it also closes the pores on the top, so there's no more of drawing the finish into the wood. I'm using a Kremlin gravity feed spray gun. I've been using this gun for over 20 years. They're excellent tools. I don't think they're around anymore. Then once the top dried with the fill coat, which is a couple of days, then I do the same thing to the bottom. Here I'm spraying the bottom exactly the same way as I sprayed the top. We seal the wood completely, bottom, top, and all the edges, and that way the wood is really protected. Then we came to the final step here. We're delivering the top, and it was a 30-minute drive local by the water. The top was quite easy to take off the truck. We put them on a cart and then we installed it, and you could see here the top came out absolutely beautiful and the client was very happy.